Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Read Aloud. I'm going to read The Voice That Won the Vote, How One Woman's Words Made History. And this book reminds me of Brave, which we read a couple weeks ago, and it's going to relate to what we're going to learn about next week with government and voting. This book is also going to be assigned to you on Epic if you would like to just read it yourself instead of listening to this read aloud. A vote is a voice. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. This is what matters to me. This is who I am. This is who I choose to lead my town, my state, my country. In 1920, so it's 2020 right now, so that was 100 years ago. In 1920, women were still denied that voice. For nearly 75 years, they had organized meetings, marched in parades, carried signs, and made speeches demanding their right to vote. "Say yes to suffrage," they shouted. They wore yellow roses. Yellow means yes. But they were silenced. Other voices drowned them out. Troublemakers, uncivilized, female voters will surely cause chaos. Woman with a voice in politics? Nonsense. The only vote a woman needs is the vote to choose her husband. But nestled in a valley on a farm in East Tennessee, one woman was determined to have a voice and a vote. Feb Byrne was known around town as smart and strong-willed. At a time when most women didn't go to college, Feb did. She graduated and became a teacher. She read newspapers, magazines, and books. She loved to learn. Feb Byrne was especially fascinated by laws and the people who made them. Every year on election day, the men who worked on her farm would head to town hall to cast their votes. And every year, Feb Byrne would watch them go. She was sick and tired of staying home, shut out of the process. So one day, she sat on her front porch with some paper, a pen, and a plan. "Dear son," she began. A few days later, a letter arrived on the desk of the youngest lawmaker in Tennessee. His name was Harry Byrne, and on that hot August day, he watched the state capitol fill up with reporters, photographers, and people from all over the country who had come to witness history. America was on the verge of change. 35 states wanted women to vote, but the country needed 36 to make it a law. It all came down to Tennessee, the last state left to vote. If lawmakers in Tennessee said yes, women across the nation would finally be allowed to cast their ballots. If Tennessee lawmakers said no, well, things would stay exactly the same. It was a tie. They would have to vote again. Harry Byrne was ready to stand firm for what he believed in. He had voted against women's suffrage in the first round. He knew that most of the people who had elected him hated the idea of women voting. Many of those people were in the audience. They knew they could count on Harry Byrne. After all, the proof was right there on his jacket, a red rose, the symbol of keeping women in the home and out of the voting booth. The state capitol was filled with more red roses than yellow that day, and everyone knew what that meant. Someone would break the tie with a no. It was time to vote again. Someone did indeed break the tie. Harry Byrne. "Yes," he said. "What?" The officials in charge asked the young lawmaker to repeat himself. Obviously, he'd made a mistake. Clearly, he'd gotten confused. But there was no mistake. He was not confused. Harry Byrne wanted women to vote. No one could believe it. Many of the women had organized meetings, marched in parades, carried signs, and made speeches, were in the audience wearing their yellow roses. They gasped and cried and hugged each other. But why did Harry Byrne change his vote? "I know that a mother's advice is always safest for a boy to follow," he explained, And then from his jacket pocket, behind that red rose, Harry Byrne pulled out a note from his mother, the one Feb Byrne had written on her front porch. The people who had elected Harry Byrne were shocked and furious. A grown man listening to his mother? We'll show him, they thought. We will not vote for Harry Byrne in the next election. Byrne ruined in politics, declared the headlines. Harry Byrne understood. He knew that by giving women the right to vote, he was giving up his seat in the Tennessee House of Representatives. The people in his district just weren't ready for a leader who wanted women to vote. He told newspaper reporters, "I am happy simply because I followed my conscience. It kept telling me women are people, and voting, he knew, should be the right of all people." He thought again of his mother. "So I made the choice," he said, explaining that standing up for what he believed in was more important than winning the next election. It took courage, and courage has a way of making things right. Election day came. When the campaigns were over and the votes were counted, the new state representative was announced. Harry Byrne! He kept his seat in the Tennessee legislature, kept standing up for equal rights. And no one was prouder than the woman who, without speaking a word, gave all women a voice. So if you go back to this picture, that's a real picture of Harry Byrne's mother, Feb Byrne. And there's a little history of her if you'd like to read that. Okay, everybody, that is the story. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did as well. Please answer the questions that go along with this. All right, bye.